Admiral Jake Morrison looked out at the massive space station floating before them. The metal structure was bigger than any city on Earth, with lights blinking across its surface like stars. Ships from 12 different alien species moved around, it like busy insects. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, and Jake knew this might be humanity's last chance at peace. "Admiral, we're receiving their signal," said Lieutenant Sarah Wells from her station. "They're ready for the ambassador." Jake nodded and walked to the communication room. Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez was already there, checking her notes one final time. She had been Earth's voice in space for 3 years now, always trying to keep the peace between humans and the alien species that ruled this part of the galaxy. "Are you ready, Lisa?" Jake asked. She looked up with tired eyes. "As ready as anyone can be to deliver an ultimatum disguised as a warning." The view screen flickered to life, showing the council chamber. Jake had seen it many times before, but it still amazed him. 12 different alien species sat around a circular table, each one stranger than the last. The Vexhi looked like giant snakes with arms, their scales shifting colors when they spoke. The Mordani appeared to be made of living crystal, their bodies catching and reflecting light in rainbow patterns. The insect-like Krixtar clicked and buzzed, their multiple eyes focusing on the screen. At the center sat Chancellor Susthak of the Vexhi, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. "Ambassador Rodriguez, we are prepared to hear Earth's final statement." Lisa straightened her shoulders. "Honorable council members, I stand before you today not as a supplicant, but as a representative of humanity. For 3 years we have maintained peaceful relations with your alliance. We have followed your laws, respected your territories, and conducted ourselves with honor." High Arbiter Calthon, the Mordani representative, hummed in a tone that sounded like breaking glass. "Yes, humans have been remarkably compliant. However," Lisa continued, "there have been increasing incidents that test our patience. Raids on our mining colonies, attacks on our trade ships, harassment of our settlers. Each time we have responded with restraint. We have captured raiders instead of killing them. We have disabled attacking ships instead of destroying them. We have sought justice through proper channels instead of taking revenge." War speaker, Chkavar of the Krixtar, made a sound like grinding metal. "Your point, human?" Lisa took a deep breath. "My point is this. We have shown restraint in our conflicts with your member species. Our military doctrine emphasizes minimal casualties and measured responses. This should not be mistaken for weakness." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Chancellor Susthak began to laugh, a hissing sound that made Jake's skin crawl. Soon, other council members joined in. The crystalline Mordani chimed like broken bells, while the Krixtar produced a sound like a machine grinding apart. "Weakness," Susthak said, still laughing. "Oh, Ambassador, we would never mistake human behavior for weakness. We recognize it for exactly what it is." "And what is that?" Lisa asked, though Jake could see her hands clenching behind her back. "Cowardice," Calthon replied, his crystal body flashing with what might have been amusement. "A species too soft to do what is necessary, too civilized to survive in a galaxy where strength matters." Jake felt his jaw tighten. Through his earpiece he could hear similar reactions from his crew. Captain Rick Davis, commanding the escort ship UES Defender, muttered something that probably wasn't fit for diplomatic channels. Lisa maintained her composure. "I see. And what would you consider necessary action?" "When pirates attack your colonies, you capture them and hand them over to authorities." Chkavar clicked. "A strong species would wipe out their entire fleet and broadcast the executions as a warning. When warships fire on your traders, you disable their weapons." Susthak added, "A strong species would destroy the ships and enslave the crews. When settlers are harassed, you file complaints," Calthon chimed. "A strong species would glass the planet and claim it entirely." Jake watched Lisa's face remain perfectly calm, but he knew her well enough to see the storm building behind her eyes. "I see," she said quietly. "So you view our restraint as evidence that we cannot or will not defend ourselves properly." "Precisely," Susthak hissed. "Which brings us to today's main business, The Council has voted. Humanity will withdraw from all territories beyond your home system. You will cease all independent trade operations. You will accept tributary status. Under Council authority, your military will be reduced to system defense only. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Through the comm, he could sense the tension on every human ship in the fleet. Lisa stood perfectly still for several seconds. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. And if we refuse, then you will face the combined military might of the Galactic Council. Chikavar clicked triumphantly. 8,000 warships representing 12 civilizations. Your little fleet of a few hundred ships will be crushed like insects. Lisa nodded slowly. I see. You have made your position very clear. Earth will need time to consider this ultimatum. You have 72 hours, Sistok declared. After that, we will assume your answer is defiance and we will act accordingly. The connection ended, leaving the communication room in silence. Lisa sat down heavily in her chair, suddenly looking very old. Admiral, she said without looking up, please establish a priority channel to Earth. I need to speak with President Carter immediately. 6 hours later, Jake stood on his bridge watching the response broadcast from Earth. President Helen Carter appeared on screens across the human fleet, her face calm but her eyes hard as steel. Citizens of Earth and humanity throughout the galaxy, she began. Today, the Galactic Council delivered an ultimatum demanding our surrender and submission. They have interpreted our restraint as weakness, our mercy as cowardice, our measured responses as inability to defend ourselves. Jake saw his crew leaning forward, waiting for the words they all knew were coming. For 3 years, we have tried to show these species that strength does not require cruelty, that power does not require domination, that victory does not require genocide. We have pulled our punches, held back our capabilities, and chosen the minimum force necessary to achieve our objectives. The president paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. We tried to warn them. We showed them mercy because we believed in coexistence. They have chosen to interpret our restraint as weakness. That restraint is now officially withdrawn. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he heard those words. Echoed throughout his ship, throughout the fleet, throughout human space. To the Galactic Council I say this. You wanted to see what human warfare looks like without restraint. You are about to get your wish. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you, because we will not. The broadcast ended, leaving Jake's bridge in absolute silence. Then Lieutenant Wells spoke, her voice barely a whisper. Sir, we're receiving new orders from Fleet Command. Jake looked at the message on his screen. 2 words that changed everything. Directive 7. He had hoped he would never see those words. Every human military officer knew what Directive 7 meant, though most prayed they would never have to implement it. No restraint, no mercy, no prisoners. The real war was about to begin. The news feeds across the galaxy were having a field day. Alien journalists from 12 different worlds laughed as they reported on Earth's declaration of war. On Vexi Prime, news anchor Sis Kith showed footage of human ships and made jokes about their small size. On Mordani Crystal, the evening report called humans the galaxy's newest comedy act. Chancellor Sistak appeared on every major network, his scaled face twisted in what passed for a smile among his people. 8,000 ships, he said, spreading his arms wide. The greatest armada ever assembled. These humans have perhaps 300 vessels. The mathematics are simple even for primitive minds. Military experts across Council space agreed. General Thakmor of the Harkoni showed star charts on the evening news, pointing out human positions with obvious contempt. They are spread thin, across 40 systems, he explained. We will crush them system by system, world by world. Within a month, Earth will beg for the mercy they refuse to give others. But deep in space, far from the news cameras and laughing anchors, something was happening that would change everything. Fleet Admiral Tony Blake sat in his command chair aboard the UES Vengeance, reading the orders that had just arrived from Earth. The message was short and direct. Directive 7 is now authorized. Rules of engagement are suspended. Show them what human warfare looks like when we stop pulling our punches. Tony had served in the human fleet for 30 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and raiders. He had always followed the rules, always. Tried to minimize casualties, always sought the cleanest victory possible. Today, all of that changed. Communications, he said. Send coded transmission to all fleet commanders. Authorization Omega 77. They'll know what it means. Across human space, ship captains opened sealed orders they had hoped never to see. Colonel Amy Watson, aboard the stealth ship UES Ghost, read her new mission parameters with cold satisfaction. Her target wasn't military installations or enemy fleets. Her target was the Council leadership itself. Listen up, she told her special operations team. We're done playing by their rules. Time to remind them that humans wrote the book on making people disappear. The first phase began simultaneously across 40 star systems. For 3 years, human merchant ships had traveled Council space, carrying trade goods and following all the proper regulations. The aliens had grown used to seeing them. They were just part of the background, harmless civilian vessels going about their business. Captain Steve Parker stood on the bridge of what appeared to be a simple cargo hauler called the Lucky Strike. For 2 years, he had carried grain, manufactured goods and mining equipment through this sector. The Harkoni patrol ships barely bothered to scan his ship anymore. They knew him by name. Captain, his weapons officer said, we have multiple contacts approaching. 6 Harkoni patrol ships, standard formation. Steve nodded. Are we ready? All systems green, sir. Disguise protocol ready for immediate shutdown. The Harkoni ships approached as they always did, with casual arrogance. They expected another routine inspection of another harmless human freighter. Their leader, Commander Gracton, opened a channel. Human vessel Lucky Strike, prepare for boarding inspection. You will submit to our authority as required by Council law. Steve smiled coldly. Commander Gracton, this is Captain Parker. I have a counter-proposal. You are in no position to make proposals, human. Actually, Steve said, I am. He nodded to his crew. Across the ship, hidden panels slid open. Fake cargo containers folded away to reveal weapon systems that had never appeared on any Council scanner. The Lucky Strike's outer hull began to separate and fall away, revealing the true ship underneath. Where a simple cargo hauler had been, now floated a battlecruiser bristling with weapons. Advanced stealth technology had hidden its true nature for years. The Harkoni patrol ships suddenly found themselves facing a warship with more firepower than their entire fleet combined. What is this? Gracton screamed. This, Steve said, is what happens when humans stop pretending to be harmless. The battle lasted exactly 37 seconds. The Harkoni ships tried to flee, tried to fight, tried to call for help. None of it mattered. Electromagnetic pulse weapons destroyed their communications before they could send a single distress call. Particle beam cannons tore through their hulls like paper. When it was over, 6 patrol ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Every merchant ship that had been traveling Council space revealed its true nature. Cargo haulers became destroyers. Passenger liners became assault carriers. Mining ships became mobile weapons, platforms. In a single coordinated strike, the human merchant fleet transformed into a battle group, larger than anything the Council had imagined possible. Dr. Karen Hughes worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the medical research ship UES Healing Light. For 2 years, she had been studying alien biology under the cover of humanitarian medical research. Council species had welcomed her work, praising humans for their dedication to galactic health and cooperation. They had no idea what she was really doing. How long until the first batch is ready? Asked her assistant, Dr. Roy Adams. 6 hours, Karen replied, not looking up from her work. The Vexi variant should be ready first. Their respiratory system makes them especially vulnerable to airborne agents. And the others? The Mordani variant targets their crystalline structure. It won't kill them, but it will cause constant pain until they submit. The Crixtar variant affects their hive mind communication. Without that link, they become confused and helpless. Karen had spent 2 years learning everything about Council species biology. She knew their weaknesses, their genetic structures, their environmental needs. What the aliens thought was medical cooperation had actually been detailed reconnaissance for biological warfare. Admiral Jake Morrison received the first battle reports with grim satisfaction. Across 40 systems, Council forces were being systematically destroyed by ships they had never seen coming. Human vessels that had been hiding in plain sight for years were revealing their true capabilities. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Wells reported, "we're getting emergency transmissions from Council worlds. They're calling for immediate military assistance." "And their response?" "Panic, sir. They're scrambling everything they have, but they don't understand what they're facing. Most of their commanders think they're dealing with a human sneak attack, using a few hidden ships." Jake nodded. The aliens still didn't understand. They thought this was the same human fleet they had been fighting for 3 years, just using different tactics. They had no idea that what they had been fighting wasn't Earth's real military. Those had been diplomats with guns, peacekeepers trying to maintain order with minimum force. Now they were about to meet the real human war machine. Captain Rick Davis, commanding the UES Defender, watched enemy reinforcements approaching his position. 3 squadrons of Zephyrian raiders, probably thinking they could overwhelm a single human escort ship like they had done so many times before. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "enemy ships are powering weapons." "Let them," Rick said calmly. "Charge the main guns." The Zephyrians opened fire first, their energy weapons splashing harmlessly against the Defender's upgraded shields. For 3 years they had fought human ships with standard defensive systems. They expected the same easy victory they had always achieved. Instead, the Defender's main cannons spoke once. The directed energy beams punched through Zephyrian shields like they weren't there, turning 3 ships into glowing vapor in an instant. The remaining raiders tried to flee. They didn't make it very far. Across the galaxy, the Council's confidence was cracking. Emergency sessions were called on every world as leaders tried to understand what was happening. The humans they had dismissed as weak and cowardly were destroying their forces with casual efficiency. On Mordani Crystal, High Arbiter Calthon stared at the battle reports in disbelief. "This cannot be accurate," he chimed. "Humans do not possess such capabilities." On Vexi Prime, Chancellor Sistak was having similar thoughts. Where did these ships come from? Our intelligence reports never mentioned such vessels. The answer was simple, though it would take them time to understand it. For 3 years, humanity had been fighting with one hand tied behind their back. They had been using exploration ships fitted with basic weapons, crewed by diplomats and peacekeepers who were under strict orders to minimize casualties. Now the real fleet was emerging from the shadows. Ships built in secret shipyards, armed with weapons developed in classified research facilities, crewed by soldiers who had trained their entire lives for one purpose: total war. Admiral Tony Blake looked at the tactical display showing the positions of Council forces across the galaxy. Red dots marked enemy concentrations while blue dots showed human positions. The aliens still outnumbered humanity, but numbers meant nothing when you didn't know what you were really fighting. "Send a message to all Council worlds," he ordered. "Tell them this is just the beginning. Tell them we warned them what would happen if they mistook our restraint for weakness." "And if they try to surrender, sir?" Tony's expression was as cold as the space between stars. "Tell them the time for surrender was before they declared war on us. Now they get to see what human warfare looks like when we stop." 3 weeks had passed since the war began. The mighty Galactic Council, once rulers of 40 systems with 8,000 warships, now cowered behind their home defenses. Their grand armada had been scattered like leaves in a storm. Every battle, with human forces, ended the same way: total defeat for the aliens. General Chris Sullivan moved through his command center like a predator stalking prey. His base was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It phased in and out of normal space, appearing to attack and then vanishing before enemy reinforcements could arrive. The aliens had no idea where it was or how to find it. "General," reported Colonel Nancy Brown, his intelligence officer, "the Mordani Third Fleet has been eliminated. Captain Lewis destroyed all 12 ships with no losses. And the Harkoni reinforcements? Admiral Davis intercepted them at the AR. Jump point. 37 enemy ships destroyed, 6 captured for interrogation. Chris nodded. It was the same story everywhere. Human forces moved with deadly precision while alien fleets stumbled around like blind children. The Council's rigid, military hierarchy was no match for human adaptability. While alien commanders waited for orders from their superiors, human captains made split-second decisions that won battles. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Martinez stood outside the airlock of the Vex-High dreadnought Coiled Death. The massive ship had been the pride of the Vex-High fleet, carrying 3,000 crew members and enough firepower to level a moon. Now it was just another prize waiting to be claimed. "Are you ready?" she asked her assault team through the comm. "Ready, ma'am," came the reply from Sergeant Mike Johnson. "All teams in position." Beth looked at her soldiers. Each one wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical giants. Combat drugs enhanced their reflexes and dulled their fear. Advanced weapons could punch through any armor the aliens possessed. They were no longer just human. They were instruments of war. "Remember," she said, "we're not here to destroy the ship. We're here to take it intact and capture the crew for questioning. Try to keep some of them alive." The airlock exploded inward. Beth's team flowed through the breach like water through a broken dam. The Vex-High crew had prepared for a boarding action, but they had prepared for the wrong kind of fight. They expected desperate humans throwing themselves at superior alien defenses. Instead, they faced methodical killers who moved through their ship like they owned it. Human soldiers had studied the layout of every Council ship class. They knew exactly where to go and how to get there. Beth watched her tactical display as red dots representing enemy resistance disappeared one by one. Her soldiers didn't charge blindly into battle. They used advanced sensors to track enemy positions, then eliminated them with precise strikes. "Deck 7 secured," reported Corporal Lisa Garcia. "Engine room captured," added Private Tom Wilson. "Bridge in sight," announced Sergeant Johnson. Within 20 minutes, the dreadnought was under human control. 3,000 Vex-High crew members had been reduced to 200 terrified prisoners. The rest were dead or dying in the corridors of their own ship. Beth stood on the bridge looking at the alien captain who knelt before her with his hands bound. "Tell me," she said in perfect Vex-High language, "did you really think you could win?" Captain Dan Foster watched the Mordani crystal ships approach his position with grim satisfaction. The aliens were using Formation 7, a complex battle pattern that was supposed to be impossible to predict or counter. Mordani military doctrine claimed no enemy could anticipate their crystalline vessels' movement patterns. They were wrong. "All ships," Dan said into his comm. "Execute Plan Delta 7. Target the formation anchor ships first." His squadron moved with perfect coordination. While the Mordani ships twisted through space in their supposedly unpredictable pattern, human vessels positioned themselves at exactly the right locations. When the crystal ships emerged from their formation dance, they found human weapons waiting for them. The battle was over in minutes. 12 Mordani vessels became expanding clouds of crystalline debris. Not a single human ship took damage. "How did you know?" gasped the Mordani commander over the emergency channel before his ship exploded. Dan smiled coldly. "We've been watching you for 3 years. Every formation, every tactic, every strategy. We know you better than you know yourselves." Deep in an asteroid facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Sandra Clark worked on humanity's most terrible weapons. The laboratory was a maze of sealed chambers and automated production lines. Warning signs in a dozen languages covered every surface, though only humans could read them now. "How many doses are ready?" asked her assistant, Dr. Kevin Wright. "Enough for 3 worlds," Sandra replied without looking up from her work. "The Harkoni variant is particularly effective. It doesn't kill them quickly. They suffer for weeks before finally dying." "And the delivery system?" "Atmospheric dispersal drones. They'll release the agent into the air supply of major cities. By the time the aliens realize what's happening, it will be too late." Sandra had once taken an oath to do no harm. That was before aliens had declared war on her species. Now she created diseases tailored to each enemy race. The weapons were designed not just to kill, but to terrify. Survivors would spread stories of what human biological warfare could do. The Council attempted to surrender through every diplomatic channel they could find. Emergency broadcasts went out from 12 worlds, all saying the same thing. They wanted peace. They were willing to negotiate. They would accept any reasonable terms. The response came from Admiral Jake Morrison, broadcast, across the galaxy for everyone to hear. You declared war on a species that tried to show you mercy. Surrender is a luxury we extended before. That offer has expired. The words sent shockwaves through Council space. Alien civilians who had been told the war would be over quickly began to panic. Their leaders had promised them victory, but now, those same leaders were begging for peace that would never come. The final major battle of the war took place at Kepler Prime, the Council's last stronghold. Every remaining ship from 12 fleets gathered there for one desperate last stand. Admiral Varthek of the Zephyrians commanded the combined force, nearly 2,000 vessels strong. Today we show these humans that the galaxy will not bow to their tyranny, he declared over the fleet-wide channel. Commander Paul Wright led the human response force. Only 50 ships, but each one was a masterpiece of destructive capability. As the alien fleet moved to attack, Paul gave the order that ended the war. Deploy the quantum disruptor. The weapon was humanity's darkest secret, developed in hidden laboratories using principles the aliens couldn't even understand. It didn't just destroy matter. It unraveled the quantum foundations that held reality together. The alien fleet didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply ceased to exist. 2,000 ships and their crews vanished from the universe as if they had never been born. Space itself rippled and twisted where they had been, then smoothed out as reality repaired itself. The few alien observers who witnessed the event from long range couldn't believe what they had seen. Entire fleets didn't just disappear, it was impossible. But humans had made it possible. Admiral Morrison stood on his flagship, looking at the tactical display that showed the galaxy's new reality. Red marks indicated council worlds that had once been powerful military strongholds. Now they were defenseless, their fleets destroyed, their weapons useless against human technology. Sir, Lieutenant Wells reported, we're receiving surrender offers from all remaining council worlds. They're offering complete capitulation. And our response? The same as before, sir. No terms. No negotiations. Complete submission to human authority. Morrison nodded. The galaxy had wanted to see what human warfare looked like without restraint. They had gotten their wish. Now they would live with the consequences. On Vex High Prime, Chancellor Sistak sat in his private chambers, staring at reports that made no sense. His people's greatest dreadnought captured in 20 minutes. Their most advanced battle formations countered effortlessly. Their mightiest fleets erased from existence by weapons that shouldn't be possible. How? He whispered to himself. How did we get it so wrong? His aide, a young Vexhai named Siskol, entered with the latest intelligence report. Chancellor, our analysts have reached a conclusion about human capabilities. What conclusion? The humans we fought for 3 years weren't their military, sir. They were their diplomats. The words hit Sistak like a physical blow. Everything made sense. Now, the measured responses, the careful restraint, the reluctance to use maximum force. Humanity hadn't been showing weakness. They had been showing mercy. And that mercy was gone forever. Morrison's final message to the galaxy was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every language. This is what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, restraint for inability, mercy for cowardice. Remember this lesson well. We tried to be your friends. You chose to be our enemies. Now you will be our subjects. The age of human restraint was over. The age of human dominance had begun. 6 months had passed since the war began. The Galactic Council was now just a memory. The 12 species that once ruled 40 star systems had retreated to their home worlds, building desperate defenses around their planets. They knew the humans were coming, and they knew there would be no mercy. Colonel Ray Johnson stood on the observation deck of the orbital platform above Harkoni Prime. Below him, he could see the alien world spinning slowly in space, its cities glowing like tiny stars against the dark surface. Every few minutes, streaks of light fell from the platform surrounding the planet. Kinetic bombardment rounds, each one carrying the force of a nuclear weapon. "Status report," Ray said to his aide, Captain Julie Martinez. "We've been hitting military targets for 72 hours straight," she replied, checking her tablet. "Their orbital defenses are completely gone. Ground-based missile sites are at 15% operational capacity. Their command centers have been reduced to rubble." Ray nodded. This wasn't about destroying the planet, it was about breaking the will of everyone on it. The bombardment ran continuously, day and night, a constant reminder that humans controlled the skies above their world. "Any surrender offers?" "Dozens every hour, sir. But our orders remain the same. No terms, no negotiations. Complete submission." Ray had repeated those words so many times they felt automatic. "Keep the bombardment going, they'll break eventually." Captain Monica Lewis worked in a different kind of warfare aboard the UES Terror. Her ship looked like a standard communications vessel, but it was actually humanity's most advanced psychological warfare platform. Massive transmitters could override alien communication networks across entire star systems. "Begin broadcast 7, she ordered her team. Across Vex High Space, every screen, every radio, every communication device began playing the same message. It was a recording taken from a Vex High civilian communication, a mother begging her government to surrender before the humans arrived at their world. The recording had been carefully edited. Human technicians had enhanced the fear in the mother's voice, added background sounds of distant explosions, and included fake news reports about other worlds that had fallen to human forces. The message was designed to spread terror and despair. "Please," the voice pleaded in perfect Vex High language, "just give them what they want. We've seen what they did to the Mordani colonies. We've heard about the biological weapons they used on Krixtar outposts. Don't let them do the same to us." Monica watched the data streams showing how the broadcast was being received. On 14 Vex High worlds, civilian governments were demanding their military surrender immediately. Protest movements were forming in major cities. Some planetary governors were secretly contacting human forces, offering to surrender without orders from their central government. "Fear is more effective than weapons," Monica said to her communication officer, Lieutenant Peter Scott. "Destroy 100 ships and you eliminate 100 enemies. Make 1,000,000 people afraid and you eliminate their will to fight." The aliens were learning what human total war actually meant. It wasn't just about military victory. It was about completely destroying the enemy's ability and will to resist. Every part of their society became a target. Infrastructure, supply lines, civilian morale, government authority. On Mordani Crystal, the crystalline beings huddled in their underground cities while human ships blockaded their world. Captain Brian Mitchell commanded the blockade fleet, and his orders were simple. "Nothing gets in or out." "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we're detecting a medical supply ship trying to reach the planet. They're claiming humanitarian mission under galactic law." Brian laughed bitterly. "Galactic law? Tell them galactic law died when they declared war on us. Turn that ship around or destroy it." The blockade had been in effect for 4 months. Food supplies on Mordani Crystal were running low. Medical facilities couldn't get replacement parts for their equipment. Industrial production had ground to a halt. The planet was slowly dying, and everyone on it knew the humans were the cause. Dr. Karen Hughes had expanded her work far beyond simple biological weapons. Project Endgame was her masterpiece, a virus that didn't kill council species but made them sterile. Any alien infected would be unable to reproduce for the rest of their natural life. "How long until we can deploy it?" asked Dr. Roy Adams, her research partner. 2 weeks for the first strain," Karen replied, adjusting her microscope. "We'll start with the Zephyrian homeworld. Their high population density will ensure maximum spread. And the others? Each species will get their own customized version. The beauty of it is that they won't even know they're infected until it's too late. By the time they realize what's happened, entire generations will be unable to have children." Karen had once dedicated her life to preserving life across the galaxy. Now she was methodically ensuring that alien species would slowly go extinct. Over the next century, the irony wasn't lost on her, but she felt no guilt. They had chosen this fate when they declared war on humanity. Admiral Jake Morrison received another wave of surrender offers from 3 council worlds. His response was always the same, delivered with mechanical precision. Unconditional surrender means exactly that. No terms, no negotiations, complete submission to human authority. The aliens kept trying to negotiate, offering territorial concessions, trade agreements, even tribute payments. They couldn't understand that humans were no longer interested in deals. This wasn't about gaining advantage or securing resources. It was about sending a message that would last for centuries. Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez, now Earth's administrator of occupied territories, sat across from a group of captured Mordani leaders in a sterile conference room. The crystalline beings flickered with colors that indicated extreme distress. "Please," chimed their spokesman, a former High Arbiter named Calvin. "We understand we made a mistake. We accept human authority. Just tell us what you want from us." Lisa looked at them with cold eyes. "What we wanted was coexistence. What we wanted was mutual respect. What we wanted was peace through understanding. Yes, we want those things, too now. But that's not what you chose," Lisa continued. "We offered you friendship. You chose war. We offered you mercy. You chose cruelty. We offered you coexistence. You chose supremacy." The Mordani leaders flickered with desperate hope. "So what do you want now?" "Now you get what you actually wanted. A demonstration of which species is truly superior." The words hit the aliens like physical blows. They had spent their entire civilization believing they were among the galaxy's dominant species. They had looked down on humans as primitive newcomers who needed to learn their place. Now they were learning their own place in the new order. Fleet. Admiral Tony Blake stood in his war room looking at a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones marked former council territories now under human occupation. Yellow zones showed worlds still under siege. Green zones were the few remaining independent alien territories that hadn't yet been targeted. "Sir," reported His Intelligence, Chief Colonel Sarah Williams, "we've intercepted communications from the remaining neutral species. They're discussing forming a new alliance against us." Tony studied the map for a moment. "How many worlds are we talking about?" 17 species, across 23 star systems. They're calling it the Free Galaxy Coalition." "Free," Tony repeated with dark amusement. "They still don't understand. There is no free galaxy anymore. There's only human space and territories we haven't occupied yet." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to these coalition worlds. Tell them they have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. After that, they'll be treated as hostile combatants. And if they refuse, sir, then we'll remind them what happened to the last alliance that opposed us. On Crickstar Hive, the insectoid species struggled to maintain their civilization as human biological weapons spread through their population. The virus didn't kill them directly, but it disrupted their hive mind communication system. Without that mental link, individual Crickstar became confused and helpless. Queen Chkala, one of the few Crickstar still capable of independent thought, sent a desperate message to human forces. "We surrender completely. We accept any terms. Please stop the biological attack." The response came from General Chris Sullivan. "The time for surrender was before you declared war. Now you experience the consequences." Captain Dan Foster watched as another former council world transmitted its unconditional surrender. It was the same pattern everywhere. Months of siege, psychological warfare, and selective destruction, followed by complete capitulation. The aliens were learning that human patience, once exhausted, would never return. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Zephyrian Central, Command is broadcasting their surrender. They're requesting immediate cessation of hostilities." Dan looked at the tactical display showing human ships surrounding the Zephyrian homeworld. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender when every Zephyrian military officer reports to our ships for processing. Tell them we'll stop the bombardment when every weapon on their world has been destroyed. Tell them we'll consider their surrender, complete when their government formally dissolves itself and accepts human administration. And if they refuse any of these conditions? 2 years had passed since Earth's final warning to the galaxy. The universe looked completely different now. Where once 12 proud species had ruled their own worlds, now only one species mattered. Humanity had not just won the war, they had rewritten the very nature of galactic civilization. President Helen Carter stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, a massive space platform that orbited where the old council headquarters used to be. The alien station had been completely destroyed and replaced with something bigger, more advanced, and utterly human in design. From here, she governed half the galaxy. "Madam President," said her aide, Secretary of Galactic Affairs Robert Chen, "the morning reports are ready." Helen took the tablet and scrolled through the daily summaries. Vex High Prime had met its mining quotas for the 3rd month running. Mordani Crystal was ahead of schedule on their crystal production targets. The key, Crickstar hives were successfully adapting to their new role as agricultural suppliers for human colonies. Any problems? Minor unrest on 2 Harkoni worlds, but Governor Martinez has it under control. The Zephyrian trade routes are operating at full efficiency. Overall, compliance rates are at 97% across all occupied territories. Helen nodded. It had taken time, but the former council species were learning their place in the new order. They worked, they obeyed, and they survived. Those who didn't adapt had simply disappeared. Fleet Admiral Tony Blake walked through the corridors of his flagship, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. Human fleets now patrolled trade routes that spanned hundreds of star systems. Their ships were a constant reminder to every species in the galaxy. Earth was watching, Earth was in control, and Earth would not tolerate disobedience. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Wong, his intelligence officer, "we've detected some unusual activity in the Outer Rim territories." "What kind of activity?" "Ships from unknown civilizations. Our long-range scouts have identified at least 3. Different vessel types that don't match any known galactic species." Tony studied the data on his screen. Strange ships, advanced technology, heading toward the galaxy from the empty space beyond the rim. "How many?" "Unknown, sir. Our scouts couldn't get close enough for accurate counts, but preliminary estimates suggest a major fleet, possibly thousands of ships." Tony smiled coldly. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. Tell them we may have new visitors soon, and prepare a welcome message for these newcomers." On the former Vex High homeworld, Chancellor Sesthak worked in his new office. The title was the same, but everything else had changed. Where once he had ruled an independent world, now he served as regional administrator under human oversight. His every decision had to be approved by Captain Steve Parker, Earth's appointed governor for this sector. "The monthly production reports," Steve said, placing a stack of documents on Sesthak's desk. "Food production is up 8%. Mineral extraction is ahead of schedule and civil obedience rates remain stable." Sthak looked at the human who now controlled his world. 2 years ago, he had laughed at Earth's warning. Now he filed daily reports and waited for approval before making any major decisions. "There is one matter," Sthak said carefully. "Some of the younger Vex High are asking questions about the old days. Nothing serious, just curiosity about our history before human administration." Steve's expression didn't change, but Sthak saw his hand move slightly toward his communicator. "What kind of questions?" "They want to know what it was like when we governed ourselves, when we made our own laws and chose our own path." "And what do you tell them?" Sthak's scales shifted to colors that indicated submission. "I tell them those days brought nothing but war and suffering. I tell them that human guidance has brought peace and prosperity. I tell them to focus on their work and their duties." "Good," Steve said. "Keep telling them that. And if anyone asks more detailed questions, I want to know about it immediately." Admiral Rick Davis, now promoted to head of the Galactic Peace Enforcement Division, received an emergency call from the Outer Rim. His forces had been monitoring the approach of unknown ships for weeks, and now they were close enough for direct contact. "Sir," reported Commander Janet Phillips from her scout ship, "the unknown fleet has entered our sensor range. We count approximately 15,000 vessels of unknown design and capability. 15,000? Rick raised an eyebrow. That's a respectable invasion force. Have they made any attempts to communicate? Yes, sir. They transmitted what appears to be a standard conquest demand. They identify themselves as the Eternal Empire and claim authority over this galaxy by right of superior force. Rick laughed. It was the same mistake the Council had made, the same arrogance that had led to their downfall. And our response? We followed standard protocol, sir. We informed them that this galaxy is under human protection and advised them to withdraw immediately. Their reaction? They appeared to find our message amusing, sir. Their fleet commander, someone called Supreme Admiral Corax, sent a reply saying that primitive local species should not interfere with the Eternal Empire's expansion. Rick's smile disappeared. Primitive local species. I see. Send them a second message. Tell them they have one opportunity to reconsider their position. Dr. Sandra Clark had transitioned from weapons development to reconstruction, but her work still served dual purposes. Every hospital she built contained monitoring systems. Every school she designed included indoctrination facilities. Every factory she planned had security measures built into its foundation. The integration is proceeding smoothly, she reported to the Galactic Administration Council. Former Council species are adapting well to their new roles. Productivity is up across all sectors, and resistance activities have dropped to negligible levels. What about the younger generations? Asked Administrator Rodriguez. They're the key to long-term stability, Sandra replied. Children who grow up under human administration don't remember the old ways. To them, human authority is natural and normal. Within a generation, active resistance will be virtually impossible. And if the older generations cause problems? Sandra's expression remained professional, but her eyes were cold. We have solutions for that scenario as well. The message from the approaching Eternal Empire was broadcast across human space, translated, and distributed to every fleet commander, every planetary governor, every military installation. Supreme Admiral Corax's words were arrogant and dismissive. Primitive inhabitants of this galaxy, you are hereby notified that your territory has been claimed by the Eternal Empire. Surrender your fleets, submit your populations for processing, and prepare for integration into our glorious civilization. Resistance is futile and will result in the complete extermination of your primitive species. Admiral Jake Morrison read the message while standing on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. Around him, his staff waited for orders. Sir? Asked his communications officer. How should we respond? Jake thought for a moment about the last 2 years. He remembered the Council's arrogance, their certainty that humans were too weak to pose a real threat. He remembered the diplomatic warnings that were ignored, the mercy that was rejected, the restraint that was mistaken for cowardice. Send a reply to Supreme Admiral Corax, he said finally. Tell him the galaxy is under human protection. Tell him we are not the same species his scouts may have observed 2 years ago. Tell him that we have recently finished demonstrating to the previous galactic powers why underestimating human capabilities is a fatal mistake. And if he ignores the warning, sir? Jake looked out at the stars, where human fleets were already moving into position along the galaxy's edge, ships that had been built from the combined technologies of 12 conquered civilizations, weapons that had been tested on the ruins of the Galactic Council, crews that had learned to wage war without mercy or restraint. Then we'll give him the same lesson we gave the Council, Jake said quietly. But this time we won't waste time with diplomacy first. President Carter received the intelligence report about the approaching fleet while meeting with her cabinet. She read through the analysis carefully, noting the enemy's numbers, their apparent technology level, and their stated intentions. Recommendations? She asked her military advisors. Full mobilization, replied Secretary of Defense Williams. This force is larger than anything we've faced before. We should take no chances. Timeline. The enemy fleet will reach our outer defenses in 6 days. We can have our full military response ready in 4. Carter nodded. Do it, and send a message to all former Council worlds. Tell them their cooperation in this matter will be noted and rewarded. Tell them that human protection extends to all worlds under our administration. On worlds across the galaxy, the announcement was received with mixed emotions. Some aliens felt genuine loyalty to their human protectors. Others saw an opportunity to prove their worth. A few harbored secret hopes that the newcomers might restore their independence. All of them would be disappointed. The final confrontation began when the Eternal Empire's advanced scouts encountered human patrol ships at the galaxy's edge. Aliens expected to find primitive vessels with outdated weapons. Instead, they found ships,